Hello, Internet world, and welcome to another episode of Whatever Flips Your Waffle on 365sportscast.com. I'm your host, Mark Domeyer, coming to you from the bunker deep in the frozen heart of southern Minnesota. And there's still no hot stove league for Major League Baseball to keep us warm. I'm glad you've decided to tune in and listen to my ramblings about Minnesota sports. Welcome both to those of you who've tuned in previous weeks and to those of you checking things out for the first time. I hope you'll enjoy yourselves as we talk all about sports. Last week we talked about the beginning of the Winter Olympics and whether or not you still cared. This week I'd like to address a couple other areas, one that deals directly with the Olympics and another that encompasses all sports. When you were younger, or maybe if you are currently young, did you watch Olympic events and become inspired to try anything? For example, I remember watching skiing when I was a young kid, deciding this might be a good idea. I'll grab my sled and I'm going to try to ski down the hill in the pasture we had in our place that we had outside of town. Needless to say, that was a disaster. I was lucky to avoid serious injury. But maybe you watched something in either the Summer or Winter Olympics and you actually followed through and really worked at that sport. Maybe it was hockey or track or something like that. I'd love to hear your stories and share them here. Email me at waffleflipper22@gmail.com or message me at Mr. D1973 on Twitter. And if you send me some stuff, maybe I'll share that in a future show. Now for something that involves all sports and includes some things we've seen with our own Minnesota athletes. As the COVID-19 pandemic continues to evolve, we've also seen changing reactions to how to deal with the virus from different sports organizations. The Beijing Olympics, have been pretty strict with how they deal with positive cases, but that is not becoming the same with all professional sports groups. The NFL this season was a prime example. At the beginning of the season, if you recall, the Vikings had quarterback issues during the preseason portion when they only had one quarterback on the roster who wasn't quarantined, which led to them signing Sean Mannion since he was vaccinated, and that would lead to lesser problems if he was exposed to COVID. At least at that time, that's the way the NFL did things. All the quarterbacks had been in a room together, one tested positive, they all had to quarantine for a time. As the season progressed, the Vikings saw stars like Dalvin Cook and Harrison Smith have to miss games due to COVID protocols. As the CDC kept adjusting things, though, the NFL did as well. But was part of that due to the fact that many NFL stars, Aaron Rodgers, were missing games? A lot of these people were asymptomatic, and the NFL even finally decided to not test unvaccinated folks every day, but only if they had symptoms. Now, you know as well as I do, some might have some and they're not going to report it because they want to compete. Others, it becomes very obvious when they have symptoms. But the NFL realized that losing their big-time stars could be catastrophic to their business model once the playoffs arrived. Haven't really heard much about COVID-positive cases. Now, that could be because so many people have had it that it's hard to spread anymore among a group of people who've largely been infected. Who knows? But can you imagine if Matthew Stafford or Joe Burrow tested positive right before the Super Bowl? That's the NFL nightmare. They don't want that. They want Cooper Kupp out there. They want Jamar Chase out there. That's a whole different perspective. And so we've seen that happen. This is a really tough subject. People are really passionate about COVID, about vaccines. The fact that we are watching science in action. You remember your science classes talked about forming a hypothesis, and sometimes you make a mistake and you test and you retest and you try new things, making these corrections. That's what we're seeing right now. We've seen it from the start of the pandemic, is that we have scientists who are trying different things and they're not always successful. Of course, they're in the spotlight, and so that makes it really, really, focused upon by everybody, including those of us who are big sports fans. The pro sports leagues, they've really tried to stop the spread, at least, especially in the early days. They knew that having their product on television, even if there wasn't a crowd there, was going to be really important. And so the NBA and the NHL kind of tried some bubble things. The WNBA did that, and for them it was to really great success. At this point, though, those entities are in the same spot as a lot of people. Everyone's had the opportunity to get vaccinated except the very, very young. It's not been a secret that the vaccine does not prevent you from getting the virus. It does lessen the symptoms if you've had it. You can also transmit the virus even if you're vaccinated. Again, we're learning all these things all the time. And so the pro leagues are getting to the same point as some countries in Europe. I was just reading about this the other day, by planning on how to live with COVID-19. People have made their choices. I'm not sure there's a whole lot of people out there that haven't been vaccinated that are suddenly going to change their mind. Probably there are some, but that seems to be a minority. And there are some people who are really, really waiting. They want to see if there are long-term effects to that. But people have made their decision, regardless of how you feel. People have made their decisions by and large. Just like fans make a choice whether or not they're going to attend a sporting event live in person, surrounded by 20,000, 50,000, 80,000 of their closest friends. Those are choices people make. If someone does test positive, they, of course, should not play. Obviously, you don't want to spread things. It would be just like throughout all of history, athletes have a stomach bug, they have the flu, they have whatever, and they don't play unless you're Michael Jordan in the NBA Finals. But they don't play. They take a game off, and just like some of us have to take a day off of work, they do as well. But maybe it's time to make the move like some of these countries. Spain is one of them. They are making the plans. They're not quite there yet, but they're making the plans about how we're going to move forward and live with this. They're relying on the advice from medical professionals. They're talking to people. They're saying we're going to get to that point sometime, very possibly in this calendar year, where we're going to call it endemic, not pandemic. And I wonder if the United States has a plan, if these sporting leagues, I think they're probably going to get to the plan sooner than the rest of us, because they're listening not just to the medical professionals, but also their accountants. They're trying to make money, and as are the athletes. And so it's a really fine, precarious balancing act that they're on. The Olympics are certainly in the spotlight now. Some athletes from around the world have worked so hard to get to this elite stage, only to have a positive test, even if they are asymptomatic, and that causes those dreams to dissipate. Of course, there are the conspiracy theories. The Chinese government could be faking some of the positive results to allow their own countrymen and women to gain an advantage. I hope that's not true. I doubt that's true. It's really unfortunate to these people, most of whom have done everything right in preparing for the Olympics, and they've avoided others. They've kept away from people just so they can avoid that, and somehow the virus manages to infect them anyway. So where do we go from here as sports fans? If you've got thoughts, again, certainly shoot me an email, waffleflipper22@gmail.com. Message me on Twitter @MrD1973. You and I might not know it all, but it's not a topic that's going away. Okay, that's a lot of heaviness to begin. Let's turn now to some things closer to home. So sit back, relax, prepare yourself for another helping of waffles, syrup optional. After this brief commercial break, I'll be back with my interview for the week. Todd Walkingstick, who's heavily involved in Owatonna High School athletics here in Minnesota and is a lifelong passionate Vikings fan and blogger. Stick around.
Want to feel and look better in 2022? Come in. Check out Lerberg's Fitness Center and Tanning in Ellendale. With new equipment and updates, owners Wendy and John Schultz provide a full line of cardio, free weights, power racks, dumbbells, barbells, and circuit training machines. Don't forget the tanning beds are in the back. Members have 24-hour card access to stay fit. Another service is Lerberg's Car Wash in Ellendale. Tokens available at Lerberg's Foods. Learn more at lerbergsfitnesscenter.com.
All right, we're here with Todd Walkingstick out of Owatonna, Minnesota. And Todd has joined us today. We're going to talk a little bit of high school sports, a little bit of Minnesota Vikings. Todd, thanks for joining us.
Well, I sincerely appreciate you inviting me. I love talking sports. I'm not don't know it all, but I sure love watching and following things.
Yeah, none of us know it all, but sometimes we can pretend we do. And
I like to watch. I like to listen and just learn. I like learning.
Yeah, absolutely. So to start off, why don't you tell us a little bit about your path in sports? How involved were you when you were younger? What's led you to where you are today, so involved in our local sports teams in the area?
Here's a funny story. I graduated from St. Croix Lutheran High School in West St. Paul, Minnesota in 1983. I was voted the most shy in my class. I didn't even have a girlfriend. I never dated. I just stayed to myself. And now, 33 years later, I can't shut up. So it's crazy how life. But no, as far as sports, back in the day, I played basketball in high school, and I sat on the bench as good as anybody's ever sat. JV-wise, I was 5'3" when I graduated from high school, and now 6 foot. So that's kind of weird, the growth after high school. But
Right.
I played JV, and I watched sports morning, noon, and night. In fact, I was so obsessed with it that my parents made a rule I can only watch one game a day. And I lost my friend going out on watch a Sessions game. My mom said, Todd, one game a day, you have to choose, and then go outside. And I know, as a kid, you think your parents are always wrong, but, I look back and it's like, I appreciate what you did for me because I was outside more with my friends. But, now that I'm an adult, I have 4 daughters, 6 grandkids, and I just love supporting the youth. It's just important for me to support these kids.
Absolutely. So, and of course, you're of an age that it's not like there were all these cable sports networks. That's when you graduated is about the time ESPN was just really getting fired up, wasn't it?
Yeah, in fact, I think there was a channel I bought was called Spectrum.
Oh yeah.
And I got to watch North Star games. My friends would come over because I can't remember if I subscribed or bought it each time it was on, but whatever. My friends came over and we watched the Minnesota North Stars play, and so that was how I remember kind of cable. It was called, I think, Spectrum, if I remember right.
Yeah.
That was fun. And then, ESPN. Now they got ESPN everything.
Yeah. The young people today don't quite realize, and it's hard even for us older guys to remember what it was like to really only have one station that was all sports, or 2 maybe, depending on your cable package. But and those of us that lived out in the country and had antenna had to go to our friends' houses in town to watch sports.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, social media, again, back in the day, you didn't have the Facebook, the Twitter, any of that stuff. I couldn't even imagine if I was now back then what it would be like.
Right. Well, just, we'll talk a little bit about the new Vikings coach a little bit later, but when that news broke in the evening yesterday, you would have had to stay up for the 10 o'clock news to be the first time that you probably heard about it, back then.
Yeah, oh, for sure, yeah. 10 o'clock news was the big thing. I wanted to be an adult growing up. I was going to watch the 10 o'clock news like my mom and dad, and you know what? I can hardly make it till 9 o'clock on weeknights nowadays.
Yeah. So,
but social media helps me.
Yeah. So, Todd, what do you think, when we talk about being passionate about sports, you certainly are, I am. What do you think causes that? What is it about sports that make people so into it they can't get enough of it sometimes?
That's a good question. I don't know like my Minnesota Viking passion. I went to training camp my first time ever, and I went 25 straight years, and I didn't know what I was getting into. And I'd drive to the morning practice, come home, and go back to the night practice. Well, then I start talking to people and finding out we can do things during the day. So I'd leave my house at 6 in the morning, get home at 7 at night. Monday through Friday, for Viking training camp, I got season tickets. This is my 20th year. I just finished my 20th year, and I've only missed 3 games in 20 years. Minus the pandemic year. But
right.
Yeah, I'm proud of that. I've been to Green Bay. I've been to New Orleans. I've been to St. Louis, Denver.
Wow. So it's just that what I'm hearing is, you experience something, you try something out, you realize just how much you enjoy it, just like things outside of sports. And boy, it just kind of burns and grows inside of you.
Yeah, for sure. Like when you go to training camp, everybody has one thing in common. Even you may not know them, but everybody's there for a reason to watch the Vikings. So right there, you have something in common. It's easy to talk to.
Right. Yep.
And any sport, I don't care what. If you go to a NRHEG basketball game, you're all there for a reason for the kids.
Yep.
And you have something in common right there.
Yeah. So you bring up high school sporting events. What is it, do you think, about high school sports that really strikes a chord with people? And you have people at games, they are long out of high school, they have no investment in the game at all, but they still keep showing up to watch high school sports. What is it about that really ignites that passion?
It's just a community support. We are in Steele County. I know NRHEG is in a couple counties split,
right.
But geez, the support is, I can't explain it. Blue and Prairie, the black plaided shirts, NRHEG, the red and black shirts, Owatonna blue. It's just, and you go to Faribault and there's more blue than green.
Yeah, right.
honestly, it's the craziest thing, but there's no understanding of why. It's a passion, and I can't explain what it is, but it's when I go to a game, I feel like I'm part of the fans, and I have no kids in sports anymore, but I just get into it.
And I'm sure you've noticed this too, that when when local teams, especially from these smaller communities, make it to like a state tournament, it's
yes.
who's shutting the light off because everybody's going up there. Everybody. They might not have been to a game all year, but suddenly they're going, this is the real deal. I want to be out there for those kids, which is so much fun.
Yeah. When NRHEG went to boys state basketball with Oakley Baker and the boys, I went up and watched them, and then the boys got me my own shirt. They had state tournament shirts made, and they gave me a shirt for my support, Medford volleyball. The parents gave me a yellow cladded shirt. I went to the state tournament. Blooming Prairie, I went to unfortunately, the pandemic, the boys won the section championship in basketball, and that next day everything was canceled.
Right.
But I was part of it, and I got my black shirt from them too, and the football state. So, yeah, I love being part of the community. Everybody's so supportive of what I'm doing.
Yeah, no, it is. And these kids, I tell people too, and you know this, they know when you are there. They know,
Yes.
People that are showing up all the time, and even the people who show up one time, I think they recognize that too.
Yeah, it's, the kids are skating or football, helmets. They don't, but yeah, they know, they feel the fans in the stands.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's so much nicer when you have a full gym there than just kind of a sparse. Yeah. You talk about the pandemic, and we chatted a little bit beforehand. Last year during the pandemic, guys like you and me were providing a service, doing play-by-play, doing color commentary on streaming services. But those gyms it was weird. It was really bizarre to sit there without very many fans. Yeah.
Yeah, I felt bad for them. When I host my own sports show, I told them, I asked them on the question, what was that like? They said basically it was a practice to them.
Huh, okay.
Because practice hardly anybody's in the stands.
Yeah, right? So
it was a glorified practice.
Yeah, because you were allowed a couple people or whatever,
Yep.
per person. And yeah, what a strange time to be a sports fan.
And the seniors, I felt bad for the seniors last year.
Yeah,
Or
right.
what, last year, 2 years, whatever year.
Multiple years.
No fans.
Yeah, multiple years. Well, and like I had a daughter who, when it first hit, lost her spring sports season of her senior year. That was tough.
Mine too.
Yeah, that was really tough. And they move on, and they're,
Harder on me than her. How about you? I took it harder than she did.
Yeah, I don't know. It's difficult because softball was her favorite sport, and the team that year here at NRHEG had a really, really good chance, we thought, to make a run at state, and so that was a little bit difficult. I think she took it harder initially, but she's been able to move on. I look back a little bit more probably and say, well, what if?
Yeah.
And the kids, they're a little bit more resilient sometimes, and they figured out a way. So, what?
Yeah, and then the next year, go ahead.
No,
next year they went to college and got the same thing in college. The first year of college was
right.
Not fun.
Yeah, not able to interact with a whole lot of people as much as you normally would. So, why is being involved in extracurriculars? And here I include things other than just sports. We're talking about sports, but there are a lot of other things that the State High School League provides, speech and theater and all these other things. But why is that so important for these young people to be involved in?
Oh, it makes them more well-rounded. Responsibility level goes. They learn responsibility because you have to have grades to play ball or anything.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you're in theater or anything, you have to have grades. So that right there teaches responsibility. You have to have homework on that time. So if you practice, say basketball 3:30 to 5:30, and you have to have dinner, when do I do my homework? And football, it doesn't matter what sport, but they all have to have a schedule. And if you go to, like what time I go to Winona, that's a 2-hour trip.
Right. Yeah.
When I get back at 11 o'clock at night, these kids are becoming more, I guess responsible is the word that summarizes it. If they really want to do it, they're going to do it. If they don't give a rip, they're not going to succeed. But I've met so many kids that are just determined, and they're not necessarily going to play college ball, but they want to have, I always tell these kids, 4 years is all you have. Enjoy everything you can.
Yeah, it is. Because the percentage that move on is so small.
Yes.
at any level. Do you see, and you're maybe a little bit more in touch with this, you've been paying attention to this a lot longer than I have, the kids who do move on to play at whatever level of college it is there a certain characteristic to them? I mean, there's some natural talent, obviously, in some kids. I always think of a Carly Wagner, of course. But
yes.
They have natural talent. But what other characteristics do those kids have that kind of push them to the next level?
Again, it's more responsibility. There's a young man from Montana, I won't use his name, but he was a captain of the football team that went to state. And he went on to Augustana College to play football. And he said, I was like one of the first ones out of the locker room coming out, rushing through the paper, it says Huskies, and they got to shred it. And he said, I was about 200 back in the locker room when I went to Augustana, and he said it was just a humbling experience.
Okay.
Going from number one captain to just another guy from the bottom that has to work his way up.
Right.
It's a learning experience for these kids. Like yesterday was signing day for the letter of intent. So excited for these kids. With things starting to normalize a little bit, they should be able to have a normal sports season. But it's a real. I hope they just don't go in like I'm going to start for lacrosse or not the college, but the sport.
Right.
No, you got to start all over again and work your way up. So I think a lot of these kids are bright enough to know that I'm not going to be a starter necessarily right away.
Yeah.
You got to earn your time. Yeah, it's definitely a lesson learned in life about. I succeeded in high school. Was a great athlete, great person. Now I'm at such and such college, and now what do? I'm not seeing the field.
Right. Everybody here on my team was that great player at their high school. And
and then you go to pros and start all over again in pros.
Right. Yeah, the very few who make that. It was an interesting conversation I had with some of the coaches around our school the other week, and we were talking a little bit about kids' potential and everything. And college coaches, when they ask kids, hey, what do you want to do? And they say, like, I want to play football or I want to play basketball. That's not what the college coach wants to hear, because that's just a small part. If you're coming to college, the idea is your chances of making it to the pros are so very small, but you hope to get an education and you can go do something. And maybe that's athletics based, whether you're a coach or a trainer or whatever that might be. But National Signing Day yesterday. A pretty big deal. Kids, it's always exciting, like you say. Anything jump out at you, like just statewide? I'm sure you pay, again, a little bit more attention than I do to all that. Statewide, kind of anything surprising to you that you heard about, or?
No, I follow Twitter like yourself, and I just saw the list of names out of Owatonna, and I saw Blooming. I don't remember if I saw all the schools, but I know the kids, and I'm happy for them. But again, it's a huge day in their life, and the parents and grandparents, and I'm proud to say, hey, Kim is going to Augustana to play volleyball. I'm so happy for her.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's a big day for these kids. And what I was going to add on too is, you and I are fortunate to live in counties that are multi-sport kids. It's not like we're a school where you go to 1,000 per class and you can only play one sport all year round.
Right.
I like the fact that these kids can play 1 to 3 to 4 sports a year.
Right. And we say...
Makes them more well-rounded.
Owatonna is a much bigger school than NRHEG, but we say how important it is, and even in Owatonna it is, to have these kids who play multiple sports, because we need the numbers, and I think they'll look back too someday and say, I'm really glad I did that. No matter what your talent level was, you and I share that ability to sit on the bench quite well, but boy, I wouldn't trade those moments for anything. Not at all.
No, and you're playing with your friends. I don't care if you're a boy or a girl. You're playing with your friends. Senior year, 2022 is going to end May or June, whatever, and they may or may not ever see each other again.
Right.
Just enjoy your time with each other.
Yeah.
Yes, you want to win. Yes, you're on the ice or field. Obviously, you want to win, but it's not the end of the world if you lose. You're still going to come back tomorrow to school and do it again.
Yep. There aren't many teams who finish their season with a win.
Right.
The vast majority.
Only one.
Yeah. Right. Well, let's switch gears a little bit. Let's talk Minnesota Vikings, and being the purple zealot that you are, just review the Mike Zimmer era for us. ups and downs, kind of what that meant, what these past 8 or so years have meant for Vikings fans with Mike Zimmer at the helm?
He did a great one. He inherited a mess of a defense. I don't remember, 8 years ago, was it?
I think so, yeah.
And he made the last 2 years have been messy as far as defenses rankings. Like this year, I think it was 30 or 31st they ended, and that's Zimmer's supposed to be a specialty. They signed some big name free agents. I thought it was disappointing, but honestly, I guess what kind of irritated me was just so much in public, like, let's run the ball. I don't know why they got to keep emphasizing it. Don't make that public. Everybody knows Dalvin Cook's going to get the ball.
Yeah, right.
First down. It's so predictable. First down, there goes a handoff, and then second down, handoff, and third down, you got a pass, and then you throw it 3 yards.
Right.
It's short. I'm so excited for the new regime. I just think Zimmer, he did a great job, and I'm very thankful, but I think everything I'm hearing and reading, and I guess maybe I shouldn't believe it, but it sounds like the players were intimidated by him.
Yeah.
His anger is, I mean, we're not in his seat. I mean, there's so much pressure on these coaches in the NFL. It's $1 billion industry, as we know. Win at all costs, but if any job you work, if you're afraid of your boss or intimidated your boss, if you're going to be performing well, probably not as much.
Right.
You're afraid of making a mistake. You are afraid of making mistakes. I don't care if you're in a factory. President of the United States, you cannot be perfect.
Yep. And I felt this, and I'm sure you did too, that from the start of the season, Zimmer knew he had to make the playoffs to have any chance to keep his job, and he really put the pressure on. And again, he's fighting for his job. You can respect that. But like you said, out in the public with run the ball and do this, he threw Kubiak under the bus numerous times. And I think that was that showing through. That the sense you got too?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. It was awful this year with the time management, the timeouts used, the challenges. They were awful. His clock management was one of his big downfalls. Again, we don't know his side of the story. Just as a fan watching, it appears that I'm at the games and I'm watching these guys. Just like they don't seem to look at the play clock as that zero and like, okay, the play's still not in yet, timeout.
Yeah, right.
It's just really dysfunctional this year, and as a fan, it was really hard to stomach. I'm going to be back next year. I'm a fan, no matter what. I will be back. This year was tough to take.
Well, you have to be pretty tough if you're a Vikings fan, right? We've had so many it's a little difficult at times. But so were you surprised then? I mean, I don't think anybody was shocked that Zimmer lost his job. Were you surprised that Rick Spielman wasn't placed somewhere else in the organization, that he just completely got cut loose?
Yeah, I guess I was more surprised about Spielman than Zimmer, but what I found kind of weird is that there wasn't a lot of pictures or anything I'm seeing interaction between Zimmer and Spielman. I just didn't see a lot of it this year, and to me, a GM and a coach should be talking.
Yeah, right.
Mike Zimmer should be saying, hey, look the waiver wire for offensive tackle. I mean,
right.
You just didn't see it in public. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong to think that way, but I think GMs and coaches should have more interaction. And maybe they do more, I don't know. But it appeared they did not have a lot this year. Right,
and I read that in some news reports, too, that it was a very strained relationship. And, again, I think that pressure from both of them of, well, boy, we have to do it. And you could see it with some of the signings, the Patrick Peterson signing and stuff like that. Like we got to take a chance on some guys to make something happen and just hope for the best. But so
one of the things – well, go ahead.
No, finish off. I'm moving on, but yeah.
I was going to say – Daniel Carlson, was it 2 years ago we signed him, drafted him a kicker, and he missed 3 kicks against the Packers, and they cut him like a knee-jerk reaction, cut him next day, I think it was.
Yes.
And now this year he set an NFL record of the Raiders.
Yep.
I can't remember all that number. But, it's hard to know. But to me, that was kind of a knee-jerk reaction. I didn't like him missing kicks either, but cutting him was pretty – he's a rookie.
Well, yeah.
That's how you learn.
And they invested a draft pick in him. And we know, Spielman – collected draft picks like, kids used to collect Pogs and stuff like that. But, it was. And when you see Carlson hitting game-winning field goal after game-winning field goal, and I've always been convinced, I thought, and again, you're even more in touch than me, but I thought this year their special teams were the best they had been in a very long time. overall.
I agree with that. I agree with that. That's I don't know. Kicking's been an issue the last couple of years, but for sure, I'm happy for Daniel Carlson. The poor kid gets drafted, excited, and all of a sudden, next thing you know, he's unemployed.
Yeah.
Not very long, but still, it's so hard to know. I mean, we're fans, so we're just saying what our heart feels, but again, we don't know all the whys.
Right. So your first impression, I got to try to say the guy's name right. I've been practicing it. Your first impressions of Quise Adolfo Mensa. I apologize to him if I got it wrong.
That's better than I would do.
Okay.
Everything I'm reading, like everybody else, it appears it's a great move. Again, the Spielman, back to what you said, his thing was making sure he had double-digit draft picks. Well, this year was really a bad draft. Hardly anybody made an imprint, and I don't know if you have to have double digits to be a good team. You look at some of these teams that are fourth, fifth round picks that are making NFL strides. It's just the quality of the pick. I don't care about the numbers. If we get 6 draft picks this year, as long as they all contribute,
right,
I'd be happy.
Yeah.
I'm excited to answer your question. I'm excited for him.
Yeah.
It can't be worse. It's got to only be better. I just think Spielman was. Something was going on up there, and I think it's for the better. I saw Rick interviewed with Jacksonville Jaguars I think this week.
Yeah. I'm trying to figure out, they've talked about Quise being an analytics guy, and I'm a huge baseball fan, and so I hear about analytics there, and I'm never really super keen on some of that, but football is a whole different story, I would think, with analytics. I'm not as into how you grade out an offensive lineman and stuff like that, but I would guess it has to do a lot with that. Like, these guys are grading out consistently, and that's how we're going to determine who's on our football team.
It sounds like he wants to be a communicator, which is A+ in my book. I mean, anything in life, again, if you're not a communicator, you're not going to succeed. You can know all you want, but if you're not going to share the information with people, you're not going to be useful. So it sounds like he wants to be a player as far as, working with the staff, working with the management, sharing things. I'm encouraged what I'm reading. Again, reading what happened, or it could be two different things, but it appears it's a good hire.
Well, and he's a pretty bright guy. He's got more degrees than you and I put together, and certainly made a lot of money on Wall Street, and he's here going to make some money and hopefully make some dreams of Vikings fans come true. So now the breaking news on February 2nd of Kevin O'Connell will be, in theory, they can't sign him yet, but in theory, the new Vikings head coach, offensive coordinator for the Rams, so he's got a Super Bowl to worry about. Thoughts on that?
I'm excited because I was telling a couple of my friends, the NFL is going young. And what I mean by that, look at the Packers, LaFleur. All these young coaches, they call them pretty boys. They're all got their hair slicked over and their little shadow beard going. Pretty boys, and then they're talking BMI and these guys. I kind of laugh listening to the radio because the best bodies are the young, the McVays and the Rams. O'Donnell, I don't know his age. He looks young. But I think, the Belichicks and the Zimmers, they're going to start fading out, and these young kids are going to start taking the game over. And now we got a young guy that, we have to give him a chance. If they lose 3 games to start, can't boo them. It's just,
right.
I want to see what offense. We got to be more creative. Please don't run it on first down. Everybody got Green Earth knows Dalvin Cook's going to get the ball. Be creative, please. Just see if you guys sit in the stands and you can just see it's coming.
I think 36 is his age. I think O'Connell's 36 years old. So and
young.
And Quise is only 40. I think you're right there. That so when you mentioned like these older guys. So when Jim Harbaugh, everybody, we're getting Jim Harbaugh, and at least my first reaction was, another guy who's been around forever and ever. And of course, he was very, very successful at San Francisco. But as you followed that storyline, were you kind of on a roller coaster like the rest of us? Well, maybe I want him, maybe I don't, and then he's not coming anyway.
Honestly, I didn't really want him. I don't have a reason. He's a Zimmer. His temper. I don't know. I don't know the guy.
Yeah.
Just watching my TV. But no, if I hired him, obviously I would have supported it. But I'm happy that they went. Again, it's not official, I know, but the young man out of the Rams, he worked with Cousins in the Redskins organization. Well, if they were Commanders,
Commanders, yep, there you go.
Say it properly, but my biggest fear of Kirk when I go to games is his awareness of the pass rush. He does not feel that pass rush, and he gets hammered. You look at the quarterbacks that are in the playoffs, it's a 1-2 and out.
Yeah.
They don't look all day for the wide open. So I'm hoping that O'Connell works. He knows Cousins and works with his speeding up the thought process. When you got a 6'5", 290-pound guy running down your face, ready to kill you, please get rid of the ball. And you know, when you're at the game, TV shows you only so much, but when you're at a game, you can watch everything.
Oh yeah, yeah.
He just doesn't have the awareness, and that he's got a great arm, accurate, but the awareness is a huge issue.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
So and I've been on this show the last couple of weeks, I've been a proponent of trading Kirk Cousins if you get the right deal, if you get a quarterback in return and you can free up some cap space. Are you on board with that idea? If a Baker Mayfield, a Derek Carr, and you can work something?
Yes. Yes, because is it $45 million against the cap next year?
Yes.
Or $35 million?
45, yeah.
It's I think 20% of the was it 20%
of the cap?
Team or it's Cousins, and again he's a great arm, but we can't afford to have him just for that. We just got to get more guys in. We need more offensive line, more defensive backs, linebackers. I think Barr's going to be out.
Yes.
So they got to spread the. And again, if you're going to start over with draft, which is, I'm okay with that, but I think the 45 million is just too much to swallow. And if they can restructure them to do multi-years where it's less, I know they can work miracles, but
yeah,
they literally can't afford to have $45 million on their payroll.
No.
If you want to compete.
Yeah. So with the roster as it is, and like you said, we know an Anthony Barr is probably not back, a couple of those guys, but let's say Cousins is still here, and you've got Dalvin Cook and Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, you've got Eric Kendricks, some of those guys too. Yet, how close are we to being legitimate contenders with the Vikings?
Yeah, that's what's going to be the huge with the new coach. Again, back to the Zimmer conversation. Was he intimidating the players so much that they were afraid to make mistakes?
Right.
If we have the same players and we have a lesser temperamental coach, you got to be. You're the boss, so you still have to tell people. But there's a way to do it and not scare the crap out of people. If we have the same players and we have a different mentality of a coach, I think we can succeed. We have enough offense. Defense, I was disappointed in the defensive tackles. The one guy was out. He only played 5 games. I'm blanking on his name.
Michael Pierce. Was it Pierce?
Yeah. Him and Tomlinson were supposed to be the Williams Wall Part 2.
Right.
And I was excited for that last training camp. I said, good, 700 pounds of men.
Yeah.
Good luck getting through there. But they got through us because we just weren't consistent playing on the field together. And so if they can play this year together, it will our defensive line out, defensive ends be back. Everson Griffin, what is he going to do? Daniel Hunter, will he be healthy? A lot of potential. I really think we can succeed with the new mental state of a coach, being more understanding, not freaking out on these guys. Again, we're not in the locker room.
Right.
It's starting to come out now, leaking from players. They're a little more relieved. How bad was it? We'll never know. I'm excited for change is good.
Yes.
Change is good. Packers are the team in the NFC until they're not. They're just, every year they're going to be there.
Right. Yep. So, well, Todd, I thank you so much for joining us. It was great talking high school, great talking Vikings, and we'll certainly keep talking in the future.
Oh, Mark, thank you. This was so fun for me. I love talking to people. I just think it's fun.
All right, excellent. Todd Walkingstick out of Owatonna. If you're looking for a high-quality used car or truck at a reasonable price, Car Time of Owatonna is a must-stop for you. Justin and Jason will work hard for you to put you behind the wheel of a great vehicle. It's getting tougher to find good used vehicles all the time these days, But the gentlemen at Car Time put in that extra time to locate what you need. You won't find a better price or cleaner vehicles or more well-maintained vehicles than the ones at Car Time. So swing on over to Car Time of Owatonna, located a quarter mile east of I-35 on Highway 45. Check out their inventory online at cartimeofowatonna.com. That's cartimeofowatonna.com. Drive on over and drive away happy. It's time once again, ladies and gentlemen, for the State of Minnesota Sports. What's going on with our teams these days around the state, especially our professional teams, including our Golden Gopher basketball teams for our college sports? What is happening? Well, there's certainly a lot going on when you look at the NBA and the NHL, and not a whole bunch has changed from last week when we talked about this. The Wild are kind of maintaining that spot. They're really close to moving up a slot or two in the seedings for the NHL playoffs when those roll around. But they're also in this stretch now where originally this was going to be the Olympic break. And they're taking the opportunity, the NHL, to make up games that were postponed because of COVID and everything else. And so when you look at the Wild schedule upcoming, boy, they go every other night for quite a stretch here. And I'm sure that's going to be tough on them, and other teams are facing the same sort of a situation. But you are getting out there and playing without a whole lot of time to recuperate. And in a sport like hockey, not that I know a whole lot about it, but a sport like hockey, very, very physical and demanding, so you have to make these games up, and that's the way it looks for the Wild, that they're going to have a real brutal stretch coming up here to the end of February. And if you're going to be a good playoff team and not just a team that's content to make the playoffs, then this is the time that you show you can do that, because you get to the playoffs and you're playing a whole lot of extra games in not so many nights. The Timberwolves, I've said earlier on these shows that I'm not a huge NBA fan, but I've been keeping up with them a little bit. I don't get Bally Sports North. Don't have a chance to really sit down and watch them very much. But when you read the recaps of the games and you see the quotes from the players and you see things like that, it really strikes me that this is a team that feels like they have something to prove, that they can do something this year. They are winning games that in the past our NBA franchise would find ways to lose. They are winning games where it's not always all that pretty out there. They're not shooting well or whatever, but then they turn around and play some good defense, or what passes for good defense in the NBA. They get rebounds at the right times. They make the stands when they have to. And, maybe there's some progress here for the Timberwolves. They are close to being able to sneak out of the 7 through 10 play-in tournament setting that the NBA has set up. And certainly they would like to prove that not only do they belong in the playoffs, but that they don't have to enter that play-in tournament portion. And I have a feeling the way this team has been playing, again, as I kind of look from the outskirts a little bit, that it's going to go right down to the end of the season, the regular season. And that's what we'll really see how far they've come and what Chris Finch has done as a coach to lead them in that direction. And it's also a little bit on Karl Anthony Towns. What kind of a franchise player are you? Are you going to lead the way? And many nights he does. Many nights he's really stepping up and doing all the right things for a team that thinks and hopes that they can not just make the playoffs, but make a little bit of noise in the playoffs. Again, if you're a Timberwolves fan, and they have not been in the playoffs very much in the 21st century, and when they were, it's always kind of a one and done, you're going to be happy if they just make it. I'm sure you are. But I think from their standpoint, they think we really have something to prove. We really think that we are a good quality team. And the other side of that is, if you want to continue to be a good quality team and you want to attract free agents that want to come here and play, you have to show these other guys, hey, we're close. If you come play with us, and let's face it, we know this happens in professional sports all the time, especially the NBA. If you come play with us, come sign this deal, we'll all work together and make something special happen. That's what you have to be able to do. Let's be honest. A lot of these guys are, they want to make a lot of money outside of the NBA. They want to make some fees from ads and stuff like that. Well, Minnesota doesn't have quite as many opportunities when it comes to that as other locations. And so they're going to try to, find a way, hey, this is about winning. And if we can do that, then we can get some more guys here. But that's what the Timberwolves, I think, want to do. They want to be able to show that they have a chance to be consistently in the playoffs, consistently have opportunities to advance beyond the first round. And when you do that, when you're the Golden State Warriors a lot of years, teams like that, you draw people who want to come there and play. Think about the Los Angeles Lakers for so many years and the names that have rolled through there because the Los Angeles Lakers are synonymous with winning. LeBron James comes there. They're winners. Shaquille O'Neal, Kobe Bryant, Magic Johnson, all these names come out that you think about the Los Angeles Lakers and all their many championships. And the Timberwolves will never be at that level. Let's be honest. But they like to be able to show the people of Minnesota something that they can do and bring people in, fill up Target Center, and have a respectable team that everybody's very excited to talk about. Looking across town, when we look at our Gopher basketball teams, again, not a lot of change from last week when we talked about, kind of toward the bottom of the Big Ten for both of them. But what's interesting is when you look at the Lady Gophers, and they've won a couple of big games against teams above them in the standings. Well, that always to me is a really good sign of, hey, something good is going on. And I read an interesting article by Jim Suhan in the Star Tribune regarding Lindsay Whalen as the Gopher coach. And he makes some really great points. It's her 4th year as the coach. And he says, you haven't heard anything about, well, she's not doing the job. They're not making the NCAA tournament. They're not, her Big Ten record and her time here isn't great. But he said what you have to do is you have to give these coaches, these college coaches time. When is your first recruiting class reaching their maturity? Well, that's next year for the Gophers. And the really interesting part about the Gophers is that they have the number 7 ranked recruiting class for next year in the nation. Now, you can rank them however you want. It doesn't really mean anything. They still have to come out and perform at the next level, and you never know how kids, because that's kind of what they are yet, 18, 19-year-olds, are going to do when they get to that different level, where you get to a level of, as Todd and I were talking about earlier in the interview, everybody there is good. This isn't just you're the best on your team in high school. Everybody in this team was the best player on their team in high school. So how they relate to that and make that transition is really, really important. But I think the other thing you see with Lindsay Whalen's team, she's had a couple of these players leave via the transfer portal. They don't like the way she does things or whatever the reason might be. I think that's a sign of her establishing this is the identity we're going to have. We're gonna follow my philosophy and the way I want to do things here. And if you don't like it, if I have to bench you because of whatever reason there is, I'm the coach. If you don't like it, then you leave, and then we'll build with people who are going to buy into the program. And she's Lindsay Whalen. Who are we to ever question Lindsay Whalen? She's one of us, as Dan Barrero would say. And she just, she is a winner, always has been. And so hopefully we'll see those strides. She'll get the players she wants there. She'll get players who are going to buy in. And if they're not, she'll move on. Same with Ben Johnson over on the men's side. And, of course, it's his first year, and they've struggled. They played Iowa last weekend and had a lead at halftime on the road at Carver Arena, a really tough place to win no matter how good you are, and then just get blown out of the water in the second half. That's that young team. That's that team that doesn't necessarily know what to do when they have this momentum going in the first half. You need to hit a big half-court shot right before the buzzer, and you got all that excitement going on. And meanwhile, you have a more veteran team over in the Iowa locker room going, wait a minute, what's going on here? And I think Ben Johnson will get there with this team. Not this year's team, though you never know. They could run through part of the Big Ten tournament when they get there and surprise a few people. But he's, too, going to build that culture. He's going to get the Minnesota kids to come play for him. And again, as we mentioned earlier, a week or so ago, these guys are playing hard for him. They believe in what he is selling, and that really, really shows. It's a lot of fun to see that, and a lot of fun. You tune into the game a little bit, and they're winning or they're losing, but they're always playing so hard and working hard, hustling, doing all the little things. So now you add that great Minnesota talent that we have, and I really think that's what Lindsay Whalen's going to do too. I mean, if you grew up here and you knew who Lindsay Whalen was, especially, and Ben Johnson's a Minnesota guy, it doesn't take much for kids to Google and search up and learn a little bit about him as well. Why wouldn't you want to come here and play? Granted, if UConn comes knocking for the girls' basketball program, you might go play. Kansas comes knocking for the guys, you might go play. But how much better would it be, and this will be the selling point, it's a little bit like with the Timberwolves. Come here, let's prove we can do something. But hey, stay here in Minnesota. Stay here and prove you can do something. And wouldn't it be awesome to be part of that team that does something here? The Gophers, they have not, for men and women, have not advanced past the second round of the NCAA tournament in a long time, in a very long time. Just like with the Timberwolves, we'd like to see consistency. And that's what these coaches, I think, will bring the opportunity to do that. We can't be satisfied. We can't sell it. We made the NCAA tournament. Goody. We want that. That's the first stage. Can we get to the point where we're not only there, but we're a contender for a top seed? We can make it to the Sweet 16. I've always been an admirer of Michigan State. It seems like every year if I make my NCAA tournament picks, I better pick them in the Sweet 16. They're going to get there. That's where the Gophers want to be, that level. Michigan State, Wisconsin. That's where they want to be, is that you just kind of count on them being there. Somehow, some way, they find a way to make it to that level almost every single year. Twins, unfortunately, I wish we could talk more about them. I wish we could talk about the start of spring training coming up next week, and we can't. If you do pay attention to the Twins, though, they do make some signings at times of these minor leaguers and everything they can bring in. They can't make these major league deals and stuff, but they're trying to stockpile the minors a little bit, trying to bring in some guys that maybe will have a chance. They'll come to spring training whenever that happens, or later in the year, and have a chance to come up and help the big team or down the road. And so little things going on behind the scenes, and Derek Falvey and the rest of the front office are continuing to work and just kind of waiting back to see what's going to happen as Major League Baseball is trying to go to mediation here with the Players Association. A really weird strategy to be in when they're the ones who locked them out in the first place, and it doesn't seem like they've made a lot of strides from their own position, to try to come to some terms with them. Mitch Garver spoke out on Twitter in the last week about some of those types of things. So it's frustrating as a baseball fan, and we just want to see what happens. The Vikings, as Todd and I talked about, certainly huge news items, and we're eager for the Super Bowl to get over so that we can officially sign Kevin O'Connell as our head coach and then start to make the moves. And it doesn't matter. You look everywhere. You hear things. You read stories. They're going to keep Kirk Cousins. They're going to trade Kirk Cousins. The latest rumor that I saw and I was reading about was Kirk Cousins to the San Francisco 49ers for Trey Lance and a draft pick. Sign the deal. Listen, Kirk Cousins is a good quarterback. He's not a great quarterback. I think we need more cap space, and it's time to trade him. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the state of Minnesota sports. We'll wrap things up this week with a look at this day, this week in Minnesota sports history. On February 9th, in 2003, the NBA All-Star Game was held in Atlanta, with the West beating the East 155-145 in double overtime. Kevin Garnett of the Minnesota Timberwolves was named MVP. On February 10th in Minnesota sports history, in 2008, the NFL Pro Bowl in Hawaii had the NFC beating the AFC 42-30. Adrian Peterson of the Vikings was named MVP of that game. And on February 10th in 2020, the Twins acquired Kenta Maeda from the Dodgers in exchange for Brusdar Graterol. That certainly paid dividends right away. Maeda was in the running for the Cy Young. He's shown that he can be a good pitcher until he got hurt last year. And Graterol remains to be seen. We gave up a good young pitcher for somebody a little more established, and that trade is still to be determined who came out on top. On February 11th in Minnesota sports history, in 1974, the Twins' Dick Woodson was the first player to invoke Major League Baseball's new arbitration rule. And certainly arbitration is part of what's at the heart of the current impasse between Major League Baseball and the Players Association. But that was a big first step back then to be able to give a little bit more freedom and give the players a chance to make a little bit more money. And speaking of money, on February 11th, in 1985, Ken Herbeck signed a 5-year, $6 million contract with the Twins. At the time, that was pretty big. That was the first Twins player to get at least $1 million a year. Think about that. Think about how far we've come, where the average, the minimum is right around $600,000 now that a Major League Baseball player will make. On February 13th in Minnesota sports history, in 1994, the NBA All-Star Game was held at Target Center here in Minneapolis. The East beat the West 127-118 with Scottie Pippen of the Bulls named MVP. And on February 15th in Minnesota sports history, in 2019, the Twins announced they had signed Max Kepler and Jorge Polanco to 5-year extensions. Now, whether or not those two finish out their careers with the Twins, Kepler especially seems to be at the heart of trade rumors, will remain to be seen. This coming week, for those of you who are listening locally in Richland, Heartland, Allendale, Geneva sports, on February 10th, the Wrestlers are at home versus the Waterville Elysian Morristown, Janesville, Waldorf, Pemberton Grizzlies, a big Gopher Conference wrestling match. On February 11th, girls basketball is home against Blooming Prairie, and boys basketball at Blooming Prairie. Wrestling travels to Stewartville that night. And a very special happy birthday to my son Anton on February 11th. On February 12th, boys basketball will continue their road trips. They are headed to Triton for a rescheduled game on a Saturday. February 14th, they have another basketball game on the road, this time to Blue Earth, so they're going the complete opposite direction. And in non-sports activities, on February 15th, the NRHEG One Act Play group will have their performance in Richland at 7 o'clock. We invite you to come on out and watch the hard work those people have put into their own extracurricular activity. Remember, if you can't join us at the games at home, we certainly invite you to join us on the NFHS network. Basketball games, I'm there to do some play-by-play, and wrestling Daniel Petzinger will be doing that on YouTube. So that is this coming week in Minnesota sports. Well, that'll do it for another helping of waffles here at 365sportscast.com. I'm certainly glad you decided to spend an hour with me again, and hope you'll continue to tune in each week right here at 8 o'clock Eastern Time, 7 o'clock Central. Remember, I want you to be part of the process and help chart the course of this ship. Email me at waffleflipper22@gmail.com or message me on Twitter at Mr. D1973. Next week, we'll dive back into the world of Minnesota sports. Will Major League Baseball and the Players Union have any chance of stepping back on the field before the sun is really shining? Will Kevin O'Connell have begun hiring his assistant coaches for the Vikings? Will the Timberwolves and Wilds solidify their playoff chances? Come on back and find out. I'll have another special guest to delve into all that and more. Thank you again for joining me. This is Mark Domeyer signing off with Syrup.